Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Catherine Masese.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other one, the other guy, the other lady. Hello.
Good evening, Catherine. I didn't say hello.
Hello.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Good evening, Catherine. I didn't say hi to you. My name is Elena Ochiel, and
Yes.
I'm glad to be part of this class. Thank you.
You are all welcome. So I'll start by giving you the course outline of this unit. And the unit is called Procurement of Goods, Services, and Works. As you can all see, it is displayed on your screen. So at the end of this lesson, or at the end of this topic, at the end of this unit, you'll be expected to have understood some concepts of procurement of goods, services, and works. You'll also be able to understand some of the methods that are used in procuring goods, works, and services. The other important thing that you'll learn is some of the strategies that add value to procurement of goods, services, and works. You'll also be able to demonstrate and understand some of the specification developments for goods, works, and services. Then at the end of this topic also, you'll be able to understand the role of procurement planning in procurement of goods, services, and works. Then also we shall talk about the bidding process, which is very important in procurement and procurement contracts. Remember, as we talk about procurement, what needs to come into your mind is that every procurement you do, that is a contract in itself, because you're entering into contracts with various contractors or suppliers. Then we'll also be able to understand some of the accepted issues that deal with inventory. When we talk about inventory, what we mean is the stock that you use in an organization. It can either be raw materials, it can either be work in progress, or it can also be finished product. We shall also be able to understand some of the legal frameworks that are used in procurement. When we talk about legal frameworks, these are the rules that guide the people who are in procurement department. Basically, the common rule that is used in procurement is the Procurement and Disposal Act of 2015. Yes, we have other rules that really guide people in procurement, like the procurement policy and the procurement manual. But one of the major rules is the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. So our first topic for this unit will be Introduction to Procurement of Goods, Services, and Works. Then the other thing in topic in the unit one, we'll understand more about what is a good, what is a service, and what are works. Then we shall also understand how to develop a specification. And a specification in this case is some of the requirements or characteristics that you need when you're doing a particular procurement in an organization. For example, when you want to buy a machine, what are some of the characteristics you need in a particular machine? So we'll be able to understand how we are going to come up with various specifications. Then our third topic will be procurement of goods, services, and works in various sectors. So we have various sectors in the economy that contribute to the development of any country. So we will be able to understand some of those sectors, like the private sector. How do they do their procurement? Like the public sector, how do they do their procurement? Like the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, how do they do their procurement? We will be able to understand all that. The other important thing that we'll talk about is topic 4, which is procurement legal framework. As you all know, when you talk about legal, what we mean are some of the rules that are very common in procurement and assist people in procurement to do their work well. Remember, if you don't have rules, then it means you are not going to work more effectively. So the rules will enable you to be able to understand some of the requirements that you need to do so that you successfully work in procurement. Then we shall also be talking about some of the methods of procurement of goods, works, and services. And one of the common method in procurement is the open tendering, where every person is given a chance to be able to bid for a particular tender. The other procurement methods are always referred to as the alternative procurement method, but the most common one is open procurement. So when we reach in that topic, we'll be able to talk more about that. Then we shall also be talking about procurement plans. For procurement to be successful, there must be plans in place. So if you don't plan, even in your life, if you don't plan, then it means at the end of the day, you are going to fail as a person. So it is always important for you to be able to plan for all your activities. Therefore, procurement planning is very key in this unit. We shall also understand some of the bidding documents, like the tender document. How are we going to formulate the tender document? How is it important for people in procurement to use that document? Then we shall also understand the bidding process. Remember, procurement is a process. You don't wake up and start procuring goods or services. You must follow a particular process. And it is very, very important to follow that process. Just a minute. Seems there is a problem with the network. Hello? Hello? Yes, hello, hello, are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, eh?
Hello.
Seems there was a problem with the network, but
Yes.
it's back. So we can continue. I was talking about the bidding process. Procurement is all about a particular process that is followed. And for you to successfully procure for goods, works, or services, you have to follow that process. So you don't just wake up in the morning and procure items. So you must be able to understand that process. After understanding the process, the other important thing that you must do is to manage the procurement contract. As I talked earlier, I said that procurement is all about entering into contracts. For you to procure a particular good, you must invite suppliers to come on board so that at the end of the day, you get the successful bidder and you enter into a contract with that successful bidder. After that, therefore, you must be able to manage the contract and see if the contract is effective and adding value to your organization. The other important thing that we'll talk about is the inspection, receipts, and acceptance of goods, services, or works. After contract award, the supplier is going to deliver goods to your organization. And the inspection and acceptance committee must be able to verify, inspect, and receive the goods. And after inspecting the goods, they must be able to accept the goods. So it is very important to talk about this topic in this unit. Then we shall also talk about storage and issuance of inventory. How are you going to issue inventories once they arrive in the store? So we will be able to understand all that when we reach there. And the last topic in that unit will be emerging issues and trends in procurement of goods, works, and services. So we'll be able to understand some of the new ideas, some of the new areas that have led to an improved procurement process and the general supply chain management. In this stage, we'll be able to break down the emerging issues into various aspects. For example, in the political arena, how has it affected how people in procurement are able to deliver their services? Maybe the technology advancement, how has it affected people in procurement? Maybe the environmental factors, how are they affecting procurement? I'll be able to share the course outline, but I believe you have them. Is that okay? Hello?
Yes, it's okay.
You have the course outline. Catherine?
I don't know if it.
Because the one I
We
have,
haven't been given.
the one I have is for the KISM, the body itself. So I'm sharing the one for the Kenya Institute of Supply Management. I think that one is what you have already. So I want now to start, but before I start, maybe if you have a question, you can raise the question before we start. Any question? No question. So we can start. You can start. Welcome, Jane Kamondo. Welcome to the class. So our first topic is the overview of the procurement of goods, works, and services. By the end of this unit, you'll be able to understand the definition of goods, services, and works. You'll also be able to understand some of the characteristics of goods, works, and services. The other important thing is that you'll be able also to understand the type of goods, works, or services. Then we shall have some review questions that we'll also answer. We are also going to talk about some of the competencies that we'll be able to understand. As a trainee, at the end of this topic, you'll have to be able to explain some of the concepts of procurement of goods, services, and works. You will also be able to understand some of the appropriate systems for procuring of goods, services, and works. You'll also be able to understand some of the values of adding strategies in the procurement of goods, works, and services. You will also be able to discuss the legal issues or legal frameworks in procurement of goods, works, and services. So let's go straight to our first area. We are going to understand the difference between procurement and purchasing. So procurement is very key in any organization. This is because an organization that wants to be strategic must be able to embrace procurement. This is because procurement helps the organization to be able to acquire goods that are going to be effective in the organization. So by definition, according to the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply Management, procurement is defined as a management function that ensures you're able to identify, source, access, and manage external resources. So you must be able to understand, first of all, identify some of the resources that you want in your organization. After identifying those resources, the other important thing that you must understand is where are you going to get your source, the source of your supply. After getting the source of supply, you must be able to understand if that source is really accessible to the organization. If it is a source that is very reliable, that is very good for the organization. But if the source is not reliable, then you must look for a source that is always reliable. The other important thing that you must understand is that you must manage those resources. And when you talk about resources in the organization, we have three major types of resources that are always common in any organization. One of the resources is the financial resource. But financial resource, basically, we deal with the people in finance. They are the people who must be able to know if the organization has resources. The other important resource in any organization is the human capital. And the human capital in this sense are the employees who are working in a particular organization. And the last type of resource is the physical resources. And this is where the goods, the works, and the services normally fall. And for any organization to be effective, they must ensure that they are able to procure the goods in the best way possible. Procurement is also a strategic function that works to improve the organization profitability. So the key word there is strategic. And when you talk about strategic function, a strategic function is a function that is going to make you to have a competitive advantage over other firms. Something that is strategic is something that is to your advantage. And therefore, when you implement procurement policies, they are going to help you to be able to get profits at the end of the day. So it is a strategic function that works to improve the organization profitability while delivering goods and services that meet the organizational requirements. And for your procurement to be successful, you must ensure that at the end of the day, you are able to bring requirements to the organization. And these requirements are what are used to ensure that you succeed as an organization. Let's give an example of a company like Safaricom. They use procurement to their advantages. That's why at any given time, you're able to get the inventory that you require. For example, the credit that you want to buy from a particular shop, or the credit that you want to buy maybe from a supermarket. Anytime you want that item, you'll always get it. So procurement is working to their advantage, and that is a strategic function in procurement. So again, the other thing that we are going to talk about are some of the activities that are involved in procurement. One of the activities is procurement and sourcing strategy. As you talk about procurement, you must also be able to understand some of the sourcing strategies that you are going to use. For example, you can decide to use a sourcing strategy where you are looking for local suppliers, or sometimes you can decide to look for international suppliers. So basically, you are looking for a sourcing strategy that is going to work to your advantage. The other important aspect or activity is category management. When you are working in an organization, you realize that an organization has different categories. Maybe let's use an example of a supermarket where it has many categories. We have food category and you have non-food category. So procurement will help you to understand some of those categories that are in an organization. And categorization basically helps you to be able to understand some of those critical areas that need a lot of attention when it comes to the products. Then we'll also be talking about another activity, which is vendor management. Vendor is another name for suppliers. So you must be able to understand your suppliers and be able to manage your suppliers so that at the end of the day, your suppliers are not going to disappoint you in any way. This is because you must be able to build a good rapport or a good relationship with your suppliers. Failure to do that, then at the end of the day, your suppliers might disappoint you. For example, a case of Tuskys, it recently closed down because they were unable to manage their suppliers. Basically, they did not pay their suppliers, and the suppliers felt that this was very bad for their business, and therefore they decided to go to their competitors like Quickmart. And that's why at the end of the day, you saw Tuskys going down. The other important activity is performance management. So you'll be able to ensure that performance in the organization is very, very good. And that's why procurement comes in. And procurement helps you to ensure that you are always performing the best of your ability. And that's why companies that are strategic or companies that are doing well, they take advantage of procurement so that they are able to bring items that are going to be bought by customers. The other important aspect is sourcing. And sourcing in this case is identifying and developing your suppliers. So sourcing will help you to identify the right suppliers for a particular item in your organization. Then we also talk about contracting. And as I talked earlier, I said contracting is all about making contracts and inviting suppliers to come on board so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to do business with those suppliers. Then we also talk about purchasing. And purchasing is one component of procurement. And purchasing basically is inside procurement. Purchasing basically is buying goods so that you achieve a particular objective in an organization. For example, for those organizations that, let's say, provide tea for their staffs, during a tea break, you realize maybe you don't have sugar. You can decide to send somebody to go and purchase the sugar so that you cook tea. So basically, purchasing is that act of buying for purposes of achieving a particular objective in your organization. Then the other activity is compliance and governance. So procurement is all about complying. You are complying with rules and regulations given by the government of the day. You are also complying with some of the regulations that are given by the organization themselves. Remember, in an organization, we have those policies that are internal and they affect the internal operation of any organization. So the people in procurement department or the procurement function must be able to comply with some of those regulations internally in the organization. They must also be able to comply with the government regulation so that at the end of the day, when the government is doing the audits, it is always easy for them even to explain some of the mishappening or some of the procedures that were basically used in procurement. The other thing is governance. Governance is all about leadership. The people in procurement must be able to have a good leadership, and leadership starts with you. Then it goes up to the managers. So if you don't carry yourself well, at the end of the day, you might end up messing yourself. Remember the ethical issues in procurement. So people in procurement must be able to govern themselves well. And there is this perception in procurement that procurement guys are thieves, which is a very wrong perception. So what you need to do basically is to ensure that you upgrade when it comes to issues of leadership. Then the other one is payment approvals. Sometimes it is always good to make follow-up. As a procurement officer, you must be able to make follow-up. You are following up and ensuring that suppliers are paid, because that is one of your business as a procurement officer. You must be able to ensure that your suppliers are paid on time. Any question up to there? Any question? No question. So the other thing that I'm going to talk about is procurement is also viewed as a wholesome approach to obtaining goods, works, and services. When we talk about wholesome approach, what we basically mean is that procurement involves every other person in the organization, be it people in finance, be it people in human resource, be it people in other departments. That's why we are saying procurement is a wholesome approach. And there is no function in the organization which does not interact with procurement. It involves the vendor selection process, establishment of payment terms, negotiation with suppliers, contract negotiation, and actual purchasing of goods and services. As you can see, procurement basically takes every activity in the organization very seriously, from negotiation, from payment terms, from processes, and what have you. And that's why we are saying that procurement is a wholesome approach. Then procurement is the umbrella within which the organization operates. So it is an umbrella. Without procurement, therefore, there is no way you are going to succeed or to survive as an organization. Purchasing, on the other hand, is the actual buying of goods, works, or services and rendering payment. So purchasing is just like you are buying goods to achieve a particular objective in the organization. Any question up to there? Any question? Hello?
Yes.
Any question?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
So, in procurement, we just give that one definition, or there are many other definitions?
We have many. This was according to the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply Management. When you talk about procurement, we have various definitions by the way of procurement. It depends with the various scholars and the various authors. For example, in the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2015, it talks about procurement as the act of acquiring goods, works, and services using contractual means like lease, hire purchase, rental, and all those contractual ways. So different authors have different definitions. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Thanks.
Any other question before we continue? Any other question? No question. So let's go to the second part, which is the principle of procurement. So procurement operates under various principles, and principles basically are the frameworks that guide how you carry yourself in procurement. The principle basically aims to ensure that we have integrity in the procurement process. Remember, some years ago, we have had problems in procurement. Basically, they say people in procurement are not honest because of the various cases of corruption and what have you. So to ensure that people in procurement are able to work towards achieving the objectives of the organization, we must be able to understand some of those principles so that at the end of the day, you ensure that you are promoting fairness and open competition in procurement. You are also able to minimize the risks that happen in procurement. And one of the risks is the risk of conflict of interest. And when we talk about conflict of interest, this is where employees who are working in procurement have their own companies and they end up supplying for the same organization that has employed them. The other important risk that is always in the organization is the issue of fraud and collusion. This is where employees normally gang up so that they can form some kind of cartels within the organization so that they end up colluding even with the suppliers, and some of those suppliers even do not supply in the organization. And this is what you are trying to avoid when you're working in procurement. Therefore, one of the principles that is very key and very important for procurement practitioners is the issue of transparency. You must be able to ensure that you are transparent in how you carry out yourself. You must always be open to all the stakeholders in procurement. And when we talk about stakeholders, stakeholders can either be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. For example, the employees who are working in procurement, those are internal stakeholders. For example, the management of the organization, those are example of internal stakeholders. People like suppliers are external stakeholders. Your competitors and what have you, the government, those are example of external stakeholders. So you must always be open to your stakeholders and tell them exactly what you are doing. They must be able to understand the process that you follow when it comes to procurement. The other important principle is the principle of economy. And economy basically is all about ensuring that when you're buying products, you are able to achieve value for money. So you're not supposed to buy expensive things, yet we have cheaper things in the market. So basically you must ensure that you are buying your items at a reasonable price, and the price must also be affordable. Then you must also be open. Procurement should be open for all individuals and companies to bid. That's why it is always advisable when you want to invite various bidders, you must invite everybody. You must give everybody a chance. That is why it is always called competitive bidding. But some people normally use restrictive bidding, where you restrict depending on a few people that you've chosen. And that is not good for for procurement. Then you must also be fair. All individuals participating in procurement process should be treated equally. So you should not discriminate people based on maybe their tribe or based on where they are coming from. You must treat each and every person with utmost care. Remember, when we talk about treatment, remember the people in procurement, you are also acting as a face of the organization. And the moment you start treating people badly, they might end up talking badly about the organization. And remember, the issue of negative publicity will affect even the organization's performance in the long run. The other important thing is accountability. You must be accountable. You must have somebody who is responsible in procurement. For example, if something happens in procurement, something that is not normal in procurement, there must be somebody who is answerable to that thing that is happening in the organization. And that is why we talk about accountability in procurement. The other important aspect is integrity. All procurement practitioners should act in professional manner at all time. So when you're in the office, you must always act as a procurement officer. You must always be professional in your doings. Some people talk even in their tribe, and which is very wrong in procurement. Instead of talking the official language, that is English or Kiswahili, you end up talking your mother tongue, and this will affect even the procurement, because some people might feel as in they are not taken into consideration, and that is very, very bad in procurement. You must also be able to understand some of the duties when it comes to the procurement laws, the regulations, and the policies. As a good procurement practitioner, you must be able to understand even the law, the Public Procurement and Disposable Law of 2015. But some people don't even know what the laws say about the issues of procurement. You must also be able to understand the regulation. And currently we have a new regulation, which is Public Procurement Regulation of 2020. The other important thing is the policy. You must also be able to understand both the internal policy of procurement and the external policy document of procurement. For example, the common document that we use in procurement is the public procurement policy. Then internally, there are some of those documents that are used in internal procurement in your organization. So different organizations have different policies depending on the area that they are working. Any question up there? Catherine Masese? Any question? No question. So I'm also going to talk about the procurement categories. We have three major categories in procurement. And the first category is the goods. The second category is the services. And the third category is the works. So these are very common terms that are used in procurement. Let's start with the first one, the goods. Goods are tangible or physical and can be seen or touched. All those physical items in your organization that you can see and touch, they form part of the goods in your organization. There is a wide range of goods from simple to complex goods. For example, an example of a simple good is the stationaries that you use, some of the uniforms that you have in the organizations, the furnitures, the building constructions, materials, vehicles, and what have you. But complex items are items like aircraft. You know, you can't wake up and buy an aircraft like that. You must take your time. You must go to that area, see the aircraft, try to analyze it, try to ask questions, try to find the best aircraft to use and what have you. And ships, they are very complex items that is not easy to procure. Goods can be classified further into immediate use, and these are goods that are used for a shorter period of time, maybe less than 1 year. And we have those goods that For example, we have consumable goods, goods that are going to be used immediately. And we have those non-consumable goods, goods that are not basically going to be consumed by human beings, but they play a very critical role when it comes to the performance within the organization. The other important thing are the services. Services, unlike goods, may not be seen or touched. For example, when you want to go to a barber shop and shave your hair, that is an example of a service. And a service is intangible. You cannot touch a service, but you can always feel it. You can always feel a service. For example, you can say this person made my hair look very, very beautiful. At least you feel that the hair is very, very okay. And services but are often not felt, but you can always see the customer basically satisfied or dissatisfied. And services, sometimes you cannot separate services from the service provider. Like goods, services range from